Welcome to Rock Buzz. Today we're going to look at another overlooked album that is celebrating 50 years since its release. Imagine being in one of the biggest progressive rock bands of the 1970s and still making an album that flies under the radar. Even among your own fans, that album is Fish Out of Water, the only solo record ever released by Yes bassist Chris SQUIRE. Fish Out of Water was released in 1975 during that weird time where the members of Yes all went off to do their own thing. And somehow, SQUIRE quietly delivered something that, depending on who you ask, may actually outshine some full-blown Yes albums.
It was nice, to know that as a band we were interested in each other's solo projects, which, is something that we wanted to establish because we did plan to break out a bit this year and try a few different things. And, we all got behind that.
Ask a Yes fan about Fish Out of Water, and you might get a blank stare. But if you ask the ones who do know it, they might just say it's a masterpiece. By the mid-1970s, Yes had already carved out their place as progressive rock royalty, with albums such as Fragile, Close to the Edge, Tales from Topographic Oceans, and Relayer. They had pushed the boundaries of rock into symphonic and surreal. Each member had become a distinct creative force. After years of relentless touring and increasingly complex studio work, the idea emerged. Instead of rushing into another group record, each member would take time to craft a solo statement. What followed was a rare experiment in letting individual voices speak outside the structure of the band, and for Chris SQUIRE, it was a chance to step forward in a way he had never done before.
I conceived the album, kind of around the end while we were touring last year, and when we got back, I think last November, I started to think about it seriously, and I started recording in March, and then for about a month, and then Yes went on the road in April, so that meant we had to break off a couple of weeks before that, and we toured England. And then at the end of that, I had about another 3 weeks, and then we started rehearsing again for the American tour, which we did in the summer. And then when we came home from that, another 2 weeks Reading, and then after that I was free to finish it. I finished it in about October.
What made it special? Well, for starters, it reunited Chris SQUIRE with legendary Yes drummer Bill Bruford, who left Yes in 1972 to join King Crimson. Their chemistry never missed a beat, literally. The first two tracks, Hold Out Your Hand and You by My Side, are pure prog pop perfection. Bruford's snare is crisp, punchy, and locked in tight. It's very difficult not to try an air drum along to it.
But it always comes back on you.
When you reach track 3, Silently Falling, this is where SQUIRE steps into the spotlight, not just as a bassist, but a composer of emotional, expansive, and symphonic music. His signature Rickenbacker tone, that biting melodic low end, that is basically the sound of prog, cuts through with drama and grace. The orchestral arrangements by longtime friend Andrew Price Jackman gives the album an almost cinematic quality. The Rickenbacker 4001 wasn't built to hide in the mix. First introduced in the 1960s, it became one of the first basses to break free from the traditional thump of the background and push into melodic territories. Its distinctive design and stereo output opened new possibilities, and in the hands of Chris SQUIRE, it became something else entirely. There's a melodic clarity that cuts through the densest arrangements. That is Chris SQUIRE's Rickenbacker tone. While most bassists stayed in the shadows, SQUIRE stepped out front, using the Rick not to just hold the rhythm, but to drive the song, to sing in harmony, and sometimes even in lead. With a pick in hand and a biamped rig, splitting stereo and clean signals, he carved out a frequency range nobody else occupied. It was aggressive and articulate, bright without being brittle, and it gave prog rock a pulse you could actually follow, even when everything else got cosmic. Of course, SQUIRE wasn't alone. Geddy Lee took the Rickenbacker to warp speed with Rush. Lemmy turned it into a battering ram in Motorhead. And Paul McCartney used it to quietly redefine pop's low end. SQUIRE made it sing. Fish Out of Water was where that tone was finally unchained. No Steve Howe guitar weaving through, no Wakeman keys spilling over the top, just Chris commanding space.
It's a double-edged sword in a way. You know, I mean, it's fantastic to have total control, but at the same time, you know, when you've got that, then it is all on your shoulders, and then you've got to go into the control room and do a bit of producing and then a bit of paying the bills, and you know, everything is like on you.
Hold out your hand, span the distance, no resistance to attack is to retreat.
From the moment Hold Out Your Hand kicks in, the Rick is front and center, not just supporting, but defining the song. And through the deeper cuts, that familiar low-end snarl becomes a guide, the connective tissue between orchestral swells, jazzy grooves, and symphonic ambition. Then there's Lucky 7, the sleeper hit for musicians, a slick 7/8 groove that feels like it's walking on air. Bruford's snare pops like it's on a mission, while Mel Cullen's saxophone dances around the melody with a smoky, jazzy vibe that should not work in a prog setting, but totally does. Back in the day, Fish Out of Water was tough to find for years. It was out of print and always buried in the shadows of other Yes projects. In 2018, it was resurrected with the Deluxe 5.1 reissue, finally giving it the high-fidelity treatment it always deserved. Out of all of the solo projects that came out of the Yes camp in the mid-70s, Fish Out of Water gets the Rock Buzz recommendation. While John Anderson went cosmic, Steve Howe leaned into guitar intricacies, and Rick Wakeman dove deep into his own mythology. It was Chris SQUIRE who delivered the most complete and emotionally resonant work of the bunch, with Patrick Moraz, Yes's official keyboardist at the time, bringing cinematic color. What do you think? Which solo album do you prefer from the Yes camp? Leave your thoughts in the comment section. That's gonna do it for now. We thank you for watching Rock Buzz.